Hi, I'm Ian.
And I'm Jason.
And this is Ghosts and Bears, the only podcast where we bring you the actual ghost stories
With the actual history.
in the actual place. Coming up on this episode of Ghosts and Bears, we've got two stories revolving around Ellis Point, a place in Victoria with a very sad history and an even more haunted house. Coming up on this episode of Ghosts and Bears. Well, welcome to Ghosts and Bears, episode number 9.
Yes, welcome.
We're glad you're here.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of actually really interesting stories. One of them is one of my favorites to tell on the Ghost Walk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is very tragic.
Like many, I don't know if you ever watch, maybe you watched them, Jay, maybe you didn't, but like those Mayday airplane disaster ones.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed almost all of them have in common, it's usually not one thing.
Right.
It's multiple unfortunate, stupid, unlucky things that happen that unfortunately tend to completely derail and eventually drop a plane full of people into the ocean. Which is a constant fear of mine.
Well, not me.
Well, you're lucky. I like someone said to me, "Oh, why don't you take sleeping pills and then you can sleep on the flight?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So when the plane is screaming earthward, how am I going to wake up enough to get off the plane?
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. Mm-hmm. Also, how am I going to climb over all the other people to go to the burning wreckage? Because of course I'm going to be that guy.
Of course.
Not the guy with the piece of wing in his face.
That's fair.
So we've got that story for you. And interestingly enough, the other story we have is about a house that was actually involved in this disaster, which is kind of cool. So we've got both for you. But we should tell you how our last little bit has been.
Mm-hmm.
It's been kind of insane. What's been going on, Jay?
Well, my mom moved up island and she moved into an apartment, which is nice. So
she's only going to be there for a little while.
Yeah, a little while.
Yeah, but she's gone up. And when you say up island, just for our international listeners, how far away is that? Do you know how many kilometers that is from here?
About 500. So it's about 300 miles.
Yeah. So it's about a 5.5 hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
We were moving her up there this weekend. It had all been planned. We rented a trailer. We did all the good things. And what happened in the last couple of weeks to you?
Oh, my back. It just started spasming.
You had an injury, like at work.
A few years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago. Jay was working on the boats for BC Ferries, and he had a really bad accident.
A really bad fall.
Yeah, like you landed on your spine, essentially.
Yeah, it wasn't nice.
No.
And that's okay. You know, I went through a bunch of physiotherapy several years ago, but for whatever reason, it decided to snap back.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Snap back. Sorry, that's not funny.
Yeah, no. So I've been doing some physiotherapy and IMS treatments, and they've been wonderful.
Trying not to be grumpy.
Yeah, no. I am definitely on edge a lot of the time.
I know. I'm sorry. It's not easy. Your back is so central to you as a human being, like all of us, that when your back is out, you're 100% out. It's not fun.
No. I find it very difficult to move at times.
Yeah.
So the IMS, I find the best treatment for myself.
And is that where they stick the needles into you and run electric current through it?
No, they just stick the needles in and it relieves pressure.
Oh,
because it enters the muscle.
So it's a bit like acupuncture.
Very much so. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
it's
cool.
very similar.
I didn't know that.
But it's very targeted to the muscles that are kind of stuck, contracted.
Yeah, because basically you're if there's trauma to the spine and the joint is affected, the muscles will seize up around it to try and protect the joint.
Yes.
Which makes sense given that our entire nervous system, aka the running of the human body, runs through your spine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I understand that. So that was unfortunate. It was really unfortunate timing because poor Jason, who, as if you listen to this podcast, you know, Jason works harder than anybody else I know. And so for him to not even be able to help was really, really hard.
I got furious, but that's okay. That's the way it is. I can't. Yeah. I did nothing.
Well, we moved through it. All was well. We had a friend come and help us. Thank you, Karina.
Yes, thanks, Karina.
And we got her up there. She's safely in the apartment. Now, the downside is what? Who's missing?
Well, the cats. They're gone. So my mom has Randy and Rex.
Yes.
It's very different being in a house without them.
It's so quiet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I should explain. We've talked about Randy and Rex before. Randy is our Siamese. We got him as a kitten 3 years ago. And he is actually more like a dog. He meets you at the front door.
Yes.
He comes when you call him. If you're in the kitchen or any other room, he's with you. He just likes to be beside you. Jason's been working from home for the last couple of years because of COVID. And Randy would he'd come in and he starts pawing at your leg and going, meow, meow, like pick me up. And then he'd sit in your lap for a while. And, you know, so Randy's much more of a presence than Rex. Rex is a lot quieter and he's more... does his own thing. He's like kind of the pouty emo teenager, really. Doesn't like to be picked up.
Yeah, Rex doesn't care for that.
But Randy, that's all he wants. His favorite thing is if you pick him up and hold him facing outwards like a baby in a baby carrier and walk him around the house because he wants to see what else is going on and what things look like from a different perspective. It's really weird. So Randy and Rex are gone, and it didn't really hit us the weight of that decision until that first night when there was no kitty cats to welcome us home. And
that's right. It's quiet.
It's so weird. On the plus side, we figure we're able to get the house cleaned up and defer the house while they're away. So that was hard. The other thing that happened, if you have been watching Instagram at all, you know I've been preparing for a new venture into the world of the bird. And I finally, so in Winnipeg, when I lived in Winnipeg, I had a button quail as a pet. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And if you don't know what a button quail is, don't worry. You'll see pictures. They are so cute. And so the plan was that I was going to be getting some fertilized eggs from a lady up island who was about 3.5 hours away from here. She was going to give me some eggs. And I was going to incubate them, and then I'd have baby button quail, which I have to add are the size of bumblebees when they're born. They're are
really small,
so tiny, and they're running around and eating and drinking like.
They're very cute.
They are very cute. But she texted me on the weekend. Keep in mind the weekend that we're up island, and she goes, "Hey, I've got your eggs for you. I've also got 4 newborn chicks. Do you want them?" And I'm like, what do I do? So I thought, okay, because I'd kind of gotten ready. I had the brooder ready, but in my mind, I had 14 to 21 days, the time it takes to incubate the eggs, before I had to worry about these little chicks. So I said, sure, I'll take them. And then it was kind of all hands on deck. They have to be kept warm at this age, or they can have serious problems.
Yeah.
And she gave me a hot pack, which is great, but it kind of burned out about an hour into the trip. So then I had them wedged in my crotch.
Yeah.
In a container. Should add that. To try and keep them alive. And I did, miraculously. Yeah. And then what happened this morning, though? We thought we lost one.
Yeah, we did.
One of them got wedged between the cloth I have lining the container and the side of the container and couldn't get back to the heat. And when I came down in the morning, that little chick was lying there, not moving, eyes closed, motionless. And I thought, oh no, we've lost that one. So I opened the container. All the other ones were on the heat mat inside. Oh, to give you a perspective on how small they are, they're using half of a macaroni and cheese box length, flatwise as their home. They can run in and out of that, no problem.
They love it.
They do love it. And so I reached into the container to pick up the dead bird, who I thought was a dead bird, and respectfully dispose of its remains. And the leg kicked out. And I thought, well, is that a death twitch, or is the bird really going to live? So I put it on the heat mat, and within a couple minutes, it had enough energy to drag itself into the little house. And then when I got home from work today, she was running around. So
yeah, she's happy.
I don't know why I'm calling her a she. I think of her as a she. We have no idea for 6 weeks.
I have no idea.
We have no idea for 6 weeks. But so I have 10 eggs in an incubator.
Mm-hmm.
I will be posting pictures. I have 4 chicks running around like little demons.
They're so cute.
They are so cute. And they let us know when they're in trouble because they make little peeping noises and like, hey, help me out. And they're eating, drinking water. And then the other struggle was finding food for them because you need a wild game starter mash or some foolishness. And I couldn't find anywhere that sold it. And I finally found a feed store, but I had to buy a 20 kilogram bag.
Yeah.
What's 20 kilograms in pounds? What is it?
45
pounds. I had to buy 45 pounds of the starter stuff for 4 thumb-sized chicks.
I'm thinking it's probably several years of food.
They better be hungry. They better be hungry, or I will not be pleased. I mean, it's $20. I mean, $20 is $20, but it was $20, so I don't begrudge it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm good to go. Got my incubator, got my brooder. I've already got my cage.
They're tons of fun.
They are really fun.
Very, very cute.
So we miss the boys. We miss Randy and Rex, but we have these new tiny little birds to try and keep alive, essentially.
Yeah.
So in the meanwhile, Jason has been getting physio.
Mm-hmm.
And those needle...
They're called IMS. It's IMS.
I know, but it's funnier to say someone's sticking needles in you.
Yes.
You got an x-ray today.
Yep.
You're doing all the right things.
More imaging. Yeah, it's good.
It is.
I have another doctor's appointment tomorrow, and then physio, I think, is scheduled again for Thursday. So
awesome. Good.
I'm being very careful.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you. That's good. Other than that, work-wise, speaking of baby birds, my summer students started today.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, they don't know anything. So they follow me around and make peeping noises. No, they don't really. But they all look quite scared. And
well, it's a new career path for them.
And can you imagine having to work with me for a whole summer? Those poor bastards. So yeah, they...
You might need to beep that.
Nah, I'm keeping it. That's not a bad word. I am one.
We all pity them.
Yeah, we do.
I'm sure they'll have fun, though.
They usually do. And usually we have them over for a barbecue at the end of the year or something.
Yes,
so
yeah.
It'll be fun. We'll have a good time. But yeah, so back to our stories. Now you know what's going on with us. The Ellis Point Bridge, as I said, a series of errors. There were errors of neglect. There were errors of misuse for what the bridge was actually designed to be, which was either a pedestrian bridge or a horse and buggy bridge. There were errors of bad maintenance.
It was bad, badly maintained.
Really
by
bad.
The city of Victoria.
Yeah, and you'll hear in the story how they actually went to check to see if it was badly maintained, discovered it was rotting, and did nothing.
I think the city of Victoria, or maybe it was town of Victoria way back when, was guilty of contributory negligence.
They almost went broke.
Yeah.
The city was very close to bankruptcy for 6 or 7 years. There was no one in Victoria who, at the end of this disaster, who either didn't know or had lost someone. As a family member or a friend, everybody knew someone who had been directly involved in this disaster.
Yeah.
So it was awful. Really, really awful.
And it was all for Queen Victoria's birthday celebration.
Correct, which was a really big deal around here.
Yeah.
And there was a lot going on. The big event at Macaulay Point where the military was. It was basically a festival. It was like going to Disneyland for the people of Victoria. That was as good as they were ever going to get in terms of amusements. And so everybody wanted to go, obviously. It was for one day only. And that, I think, in some ways contributed to the accident, of course, because they were trying to get as many people over there as possible.
Yeah, well, the electric car was overloaded, which put the strain on the bridge.
Exactly. And
so, yeah, I guess they were on their way to see the mock battles.
Yep, and there was also other entertainment there. There was going to be a tug of war.
And a Squimalt.
And there was going to be like cotton candy and popcorn and just things people didn't normally have.
And unfortunately for some, it was sad.
It was incredibly sad. And not just for the ones who died, it was also awful for the families who just didn't want to give it up.
Yeah.
I mean, parents would have sent their children with their nannies and, all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Never even dreaming what was coming.
And apparently it was sunny, so...
It was a beautiful day. It couldn't have been a better day. Yeah. So that story's coming up and the ghosts that left behind. But the other story is Ellis Point House. Beautiful house, still there.
It's still there.
But here's the weird part. The first time I went to see it, I'm like, I'm in the wrong neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because now Ellis Recycling is across the street.
Yeah.
Which is basically the dump.
It's all industrial now.
Yeah. Next door is a gravel and soil place.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And then there's, I think, some other construction, steel recycling or something around there as well. So it's literally marooned on the edge of the water, and it's completely surrounded by these other industries. Yeah, the whole area. I think across the water there's now a concrete plant. The railway yards were directly across from it, and those have all been turned into kind of eco housing. They've put in a lot of teeny tiny apartments that apparently have no air conditioning.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah. I had friends who bought one, and it was built for like one person, maybe two, and they were living there with them, the couple, their kid, and 2 large dogs. And they were doing that because they were waiting for their house to be renovated or something. But they quickly discovered that in the summer, the all glass front basically just turns into a hot box.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. They actually had to get out way earlier.
I think that is a greenhouse effect.
Hey, well, it's called green housing, so I guess
they
were warned.
Yeah. I read a recent article that Vancouver's usage of insane amounts of glass is causing issues.
Makes sense. That's why downtowns are getting hotter and hotter.
I guess it reflects the heat.
Yeah. There was a building in Dallas, I remember, that the sunlight was hitting this angle in the building. It was quite architecturally beautiful, but it was causing the interior of cars to catch on fire. It was basically working like a giant magnifying glass on ants, except it was a giant building on cars, and it was melting bumpers. It was interiors of cars were catching on fire. Like,
I guess it gets warm down there
a little bit. So Ellis Point, the house is still there.
It is.
They run it as a museum. They have a plant sale. They have a gift shop. Like, it's a really cool place. I have run into a couple people who personally have experienced the ghost in that place. One person did not realize she was a ghost, and then the other person knew right away.
I've heard that.
But yeah. The other person knew right away that it was somebody who wasn't actually alive anymore.
Yeah.
So
such is the way of ghosts, and occasionally they just don't know that they're still around.
No, I think in this case, and you'll hear it in the story, that the ghost, her name was Kathleen, fought so hard to keep her house. That there is death, whatever. She is not leaving. So that's the other story. But sometimes she can be quite protective of the property, as you will discover. So
I definitely felt uneasy at that house.
Yeah. We should go back.
It's kind of sad.
It is sad. I don't know. I think she's happy that people are enjoying it, but I wouldn't want to cross her. It never gets broken into, I can tell you that.
That's pretty fair. Actually, it's a good observation.
Yeah. So despite it being completely abandoned at night, yeah, we should go back there. We should go back and walk through it and then have tea in the garden or something.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And then we'll be like, yeah,
when my back is better and I can walk.
Well, I'll drug you and then
that's fair.
Push you around on a dolly. We'll strap you up like Hannibal Lecter and push you around on a dolly.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to jump into our stories now, and then we will be back for the exciting and ever scintillating post show. So we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy.
Down here at the Ellis Point Bridge, and it's Point Ellice Bridge. Actually, we call it locally the Bay Street Bridge, but it's actually not the name of the bridge, and there's a reason for that. This reason goes back to 1896, May 26th to be exact, and the city of Victoria was celebrating Queen Victoria's birthday. There were picnics, fairs, and most exciting of all for the people of Victoria, a military exhibition at Macaulay Point in Esquimalt just across the harbor. Getting from downtown Victoria to Macaulay Point meant hopping on the streetcar on Government Street, going a short way along Wharf Street, and then over the Point Ellice Bridge, which was built in 1885. Streetcars began going across the bridge in 1890, but the bridge was originally built for horse carts and pedestrians, not heavy streetcars. Now, the city was aware of this. They had actually some pretty big concerns. And in 1892, they sent surveyors and repairmen to drill holes in the bridge pilings and check the condition of the wood. They found that the pilings were indeed in really, really bad shape and needed to be replaced, not just repaired. 4 years later, not only had no one done anything to fix the pilings, the holes they had drilled under the waterline had neither been filled nor repaired themselves, hastening the rotting that had already begun. People continued to report that the bridge would sag whenever a streetcar went across, but those reports were ignored, and the streetcars continued to cross the bridge. The other factor in all of this, the streetcars that were new were a lot heavier. And at 1:40 p.m. on May 26, 1896, the city's inaction finally came with a price. Car number 6, one of the older and smaller and lighter streetcars, made its way safely across the bridge. As soon as it reached the other side, streetcar number 16, a lot of sixes in this story, one of the larger, heavier, newer cars, began its crossing. This car was built to carry a maximum of 55 people, but on that particular day was carrying 140 people. You can see the problem here. They were trying to get as many people across to the military exhibition as they possibly could. And so the streetcar company had not only diverted streetcars from other parts of the city, but they were pushing them all onto the bridge as fast as they could. This car, with 140 people on it, had gone about a quarter of the way across the bridge when it began to sway. The streetcar pressed on, and the swaying increased. And then, with a terrifying crack, the bridge dropped about half a meter. The streetcar kept going, and when it reached the center of the Point Ellice Bridge, an even louder crack was heard throughout the harbor, and the center span of the bridge broke. Streetcar number 16 plunged into the water, landing on its side. Of course, people immediately began trying to get out, but they barely could make it. The windows didn't open very far, and now they were packed in like sardines, and of course, they're now mostly underwater. To make matters worse, if you happen to be lucky enough to be on that side where the streetcar was on its side and you were looking up at the water and you could go through the window, great. However, it got even worse because then the center span of the bridge fell on top of the streetcar that was already underwater, trapping and killing even more people. Some lucky ones benefited from the rest of the bridge collapsing because it hit the streetcar with such force that it pushed them out through the broken windows. When it fell, the streetcar landed on some of wood and ironwork that had broken off the bridge when it first cracked. The car was actually impaled when it landed in the water, and then debris crushed even more of the car as the rest of the bridge collapsed on top of it. Boats that had been cruising around the harbor saw what was going on and hurried to the disaster. Many people were saved because there were so many pleasure boats sailing around due to the holiday. In all, 55 people died in the disaster and 27 were seriously injured. The rescue effort, sadly, soon became a mere recovery mission, with bodies being laid up on the beautiful lawns of nearby homes. People used tablecloths and curtains as shrouds for the victims. It was and still is the worst streetcar disaster in North American history. The city of Victoria and the streetcar company were both found negligent. The streetcar company for overloading the car, the city for knowing the bridge was unsafe, making it more unsafe, and doing absolutely nothing about it. The compensation they were ordered to pay rendered the streetcar company bankrupt, and the city was almost broke for the next 4 years. The story was in the newspaper for months, and there was not a single family in Victoria that had not been affected by the tragedy. It seems that some people still aren't quite ready to give up looking for their loved ones lost in the disaster. They're not going to let a small consideration such as time have any bearing on whether or not they keep looking. In the 1890s, the banks of the gorge were lined with big, beautiful homes. Now the only house left in that area is Point Ellice House, which we will be talking about in just a moment. The rest of the properties lining the waterway have given way to industrial properties and warehouses. But there's a path called the Galloping Goose Trail, which runs along an old rail line from downtown out to the other municipalities. Part of this trail goes under the new and improved Point Ellice Bridge, also known as the Bay Street Bridge. If you go down to the Galloping Goose Trail on a quiet night and stop just across from the old pilings from the Point Ellice Bridge, you may see proof of loved ones still searching. As you sit quietly, letting the atmosphere take you in, you will feel an eeriness surround you. And if you look over to where the doomed bridge once spanned the water, you will notice something strange. Tiny lights, some yellow, some red, can be seen drifting over the surface of the water. They trail back and forth only over one spot. Car lights do not reach that spot, nor do street lights. It's simply an unexplained anomaly. After the bridge fell, many people were not recovered until the next day. But through the night there were boats full of searchers going back and forth over the sunken streetcar with lanterns attached to their small boats. Many who have witnessed these lights have said you can even hear soft sighing noises that seem to go with the lights and their motion. Are these the sighs of the rescuers slowly giving up hope, or the sighs of the dead who congregate around you watching their searchers, knowing there's nothing left to look for? Point Ellice House was built in 1862 and originally was occupied by the O'Reilly family for 108 years. Peter O'Reilly was from England and moved to the BC colony to serve as the Gold Commissioner, the Judge, and the Sheriff. He also served as First Nations Affairs Commissioner for 18 years, playing a role in the colonization and cultural genocide of thousands of First Nations people. How'd you like that attached to your name? In 1896, the Point Ellice Bridge, which we just talked about, collapsed and killed 55 people. The nearby Point Ellice House became a makeshift morgue for the dead, lying up the bodies of those killed in the crash. As we discussed, they were desperate in the house to cover people. They were pulling down curtains, tablecloth, sheets, whatever they could find. They believe that the main ghost in this house is Kathleen. Kathleen was the mistress of the home and tried to save it for many, many years as the industrialization kept pushing them further and further out. They eventually did manage to save the house, and then they got it turned into a provincial place so that it is actually protected. But the house is really marooned. I mean, it is surrounded by Ellis recycling and a gravel and dirt yard. Like, it's really is in the middle of nowhere. But it did manage to maintain its gardens as well, and is right on the gorge. It's a great place to go. It's open to the public. You can walk through. People have been visiting the home, and on their way out said, "Oh, the guide was so great," and the person in charge is like, "What guide?" And the lady in the long blue dress, she was dressed like a period person, and she was just great. And it's like, yeah, no. Kathleen is often described as looking kind of 1800s-y with a long blue dress. There's also the occurrence in the 70s when the house was more or less abandoned for a while. Nothing really was going on. It was before the renovation. And there was an Australian couple who had gone camping. They were visiting Victoria on a budget. And they found this out-of-the-way gardens, out-of-the-way house. No one would find them. So they set up a tent in the yard. And then they later said in the middle of the night, they were basically chased out by something that had come out of the house yelling and began hammering on the tent. But when they came out, there was nothing there. This did not dissuade them from packing up and getting the heck out of there at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And they figure it was probably the owner of the house, be she living or dead, who objected to them squatting on her land. They have had lots of your traditional haunting things happen there. Lights going on and off, doors opening and closing. But it is the sight of Kathleen that makes Point Ellice House a little more distinctive than some of the other hauntings that have happened around here, because she is still very, very much attached to the house. As I said, they fought hard to keep it. They were running out of money. They were going to get it taken away from them. but in the end they prevailed. And historically, they've also managed to prevail and keep the house intact. So it's a pretty interesting place to go if you get a chance. They also serve afternoon tea in the garden. And if you ever go to it, you can almost forget you're surrounded by industrial complexes. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, Point Ellice House and Point Ellice Bridge are very much intertwined in what they were and how they interacted. And it's a pretty crazy story. And the fact that streetcar crash was the worst in North American history. North America is a very large place, and that was the worst public transportation disaster. So that's pretty wild. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you come to Victoria, you can come and check out both those places. And we will be heading back into the Ghosts and Bears lair to finish up.
Well, thank you for listening to those wonderful stories, and thanks for sharing that.
They are sobering.
Yeah.
And a little frustrating that we're still making the same kinds of mistakes today.
Well, we try to learn from our mistakes.
We do try. We do. I was reading and doing the research on that story, and it reminded me of a Mayday episode I saw where this plane was flying. It was Helios Air in Greece, and it was flying from one point to Athens, and all of a sudden it's flying and they can't get any coherence out of the pilot, and then all of a sudden there's no more talking. They send fighter jets up to fly next to the plane, and everyone's wearing their oxygen masks.
Oh, yeah, right.
You remember this one?
Yes. And
the plane, when it got to Athens, just went into an automatic mode because it's waiting for instructions to land, or the pilot to land it. And literally everyone on the plane is either brain dead or dead.
Sad.
And it was a series of errors, and the plane eventually crashes in the wilderness outside of Athens, and everybody dies.
It was sad.
It was awful. And the reason it happened was there had been complaints about the plane, the rear door not pressurizing properly. So a mechanic had gone on and turned off the automatic pressurization so that he could do maintenance or whatever, and he never turned it back on. So the flight went up to cruising altitude, and the plane didn't pressurize. The oxygen masks would have fallen automatically, and the oxygen will start flowing, but it's not like it's never ending. I think there's about 20 minutes or something of oxygen because it's a chemical reaction that produces it. And then the pilots put on theirs, but they think they're listening to the tapes, and the pilots seems like it took too long for them to put it on, almost like they didn't believe what was happening. They couldn't figure it out. By the time they would have figured out what was happening, they were kind of oxygen drunk.
Deprived.
Yeah. And so they weren't making coherent decisions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they said that even if they had managed to get the plane down, by the time it got to Athens, everyone on the plane would have been brain dead.
That's too bad.
It's awful. But it was all a series of
events, yeah.
Simple events that nobody put all the pieces together. And that story with the streetcar, the same thing. But it was worse because the streetcar company knew what it was doing. It knew the bridge was never designed for the streetcars, and then it knew they weren't designed for the new heavy ones. And then they
overloaded
exactly
it with 144 people, as I recall.
God! So
yeah, 55 poor people lost their souls, if I remember right.
Yeah, no, it was awful. So it's just it bothers me that here we are talking about airplanes, and we're still doing the same kind of things, except now they just happen quicker. That's, I guess, the difference. But yeah, like you say, we learn, we put in protocols, we have safety checks, and we hope for the best, I guess.
That's exactly right.
So,
be safe.
Be safe. As for Ellis Point House, do come and see it. If you're coming for a visit, and we've said this before, let us know. If we're around, we'd love to hang out with you. Maybe go to Ellis Point House. Do something like that. That would be great. We're always up for adventures.
We give away books.
We do.
Ian signs them. I signed the one with the photos that I did. But
absolutely. Yes, no, it's a lot of fun. So do let us know. We're going to thank our patrons. We got a new one, Kathleen from Florida. Thank you so much, Kathleen. We're grateful that you're here. And speaking of patrons, I want to just say congratulations to Kyle and Charlotte.
Yes, congratulations.
Because they got engaged. Yeah. And we're very excited for that. So
good luck and best wishes.
Absolutely. No, it's awesome. I'm thrilled for both of you. So we want to say thank you for hanging out with us and including us in part of your community. And yeah, it's a good thing. We feel really blessed that you guys help.
We're very grateful, yes.
This summer, we're heading out again. We sold our big trailer because we were trying to pay down some debt and shrink that credit line before interest rates go through the roof.
That's right.
And we got a little smaller one.
Yeah.
It's older and a little smaller and a little less complicated.
The irony is it has less use than ours did.
I know. So we're excited to give that its trial run and go. But like I said, we're going to go to Calgary because we are going to be working on the Calgary book. Jason's going to be taking the pictures. I'm going to be doing research.
Correct.
And talking to people who've been involved already. I mean, thank you, Chris, who's a listener. He's been sending me stuff, and Kyle's been helping me out with some stories from his childhood. So I think it's gonna be good.
Pretty cool. 3 months from now.
Wow. Only 3 months.
Hopefully the weather is a little warmer than it has been.
It's been so cold here.
Kind of a little bizarre.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been good. I'm ready anytime for it to not be like this. It's been pretty bad.
On the way home, though, from my IMS physiotherapist appointment, it was 16. So that was pretty warm.
Better.
But it should be 22.
Exactly.
Not 16.
No. So exactly. I'm hoping for better soon enough. So speaking of our wonderful and diligent and faithful patrons, we'd like to thank Kathleen,
Alexa,
Debbie,
Jackie,
Charlotte,
Julie,
Ruth,
Rebecca,
Mary Frances,
Cassie,
Gina and Victoria,
Sandy,
Christopher,
David,
Ashley,
Jeremiah,
Mamere,
Elizabeth,
BB Nix,
Melinda,
Jordan,
Tammy,
James,
Taya,
Evan,
Arwen,
Steve,
Kyle,
Catherine,
Myri,
and Christy.
Thank you
so much.
We're very grateful.
Yeah, and thank you for sending us the pictures.
I hope I'm trying to be like engaged, but I'm a little drugged up.
A little drugged up, we're not gonna lie.
It's like
when we're done recording, I'm basically gonna just turn him towards the couch and
just
put the remote in his hand and
throw me down.
And
well, hopefully not throw me down.
No, I won't throw you down.
But honestly, it's just if you've ever had back pain, it's not fun. It's so this time it was debilitating. Again. It's so weird.
Yeah, I know.
But my massage therapist noticed a trend the last few years that it seems to flare up in the change of the weather.
Like seasons change.
Yeah, and actually the ER doctor suggested the same thing. He said,
there you go.
That actually makes a certain amount of sense to me.
Now, is that just backs or traumatic stress injuries? Or
well, yeah, I would imagine it's pretty much for any of the trauma injuries that we have, because I think it was explained to me that vessels or capillaries or whatever's in the back, I don't know, I'm not a medical expert, can expand and contract in certain ways, and if the pressure changes, this could be the reason why. But for whatever reason, it decided to flare up a heck of a lot more this time. It was awful. It totally brought me back 7 years.
And I get it. Oh,
sorry.
He's moving. That's the problem. I get it. I have a form of arthritis I've had since I was 10 called ankylosing spondylitis, because I get all the fun things. It's all A words. Ankylosing spondylitis, acromegaly. Hopefully not aneurysm. I don't want to play that game. No. Yeah, I've got ankylosing spondylitis, and it pretty much put me in a wheelchair twice. Once when I was 10, I was in the hospital for a few weeks, and then once in my mid-20s, and it's awful. And when all you can think about is pain, you don't have any energy to be nice to people. You don't have any energy to do anything but just live moment to moment, and it is awful. So if you know someone who's in chronic pain, it's very hard to describe if you haven't been there. And it's also very easy to forget what that's like when you're not in it. But it is really, really awful. So have some compassion for people in chronic pain. I've been really lucky. It's mostly burned out in me in terms of flaring up. But I do have 3 fused vertebrae that are left behind by the disease. And that's just always gonna be the way it is. It's also, the old-timey name for it was bamboo spine syndrome, because it would calcify your spine slowly but surely. And a lot of people end up in wheelchairs. They end up not being able to turn their heads, not be able to like look up and down. So I actually feel pretty lucky that that's not me. I'm not on any medication for it anymore or anything. So I actually do feel really lucky for that. So I understand what Jason's going through. Sometimes I have to remind myself to be patient, because I'm like, come on, let's just go.
I can't move.
He can't do it. And I get it. So it's all good. We will figure it out together. Don't worry. In sickness and in health, right? There you go. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Once again, we are grateful for you. We're grateful for all you bring to our lives. And by the way, all the nice people who got patron gear, coffee mugs, t-shirts,
we hope you're enjoying
decals.
So
we do hope you're enjoying them, but we're really loving the pictures that you guys are sending to us.
Thank you.
Keep it up. We'd love to feature you on Instagram and Facebook if you are comfortable with that.
Totally fine.
We're totally fine with edited photos. If you want to look like a cat lady, that's your business. But we would just love to see our merch out in the world. Does our hearts good.
Yes, it is fun.
So that's
it brings peace.
It brings peace. Well, right now it brings you pieces. A whole lot of drugs.
Well, the cats are gone, so it was weird today. It was so quiet.
I know. They'll be back.
Other than the tweets I heard.
The little beep, 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 beep.
Very cute.
Yeah. Well, and thanks for taking care of them while I was at work. You moved them to a warmer spot and gave them...
They weigh nothing.
No.
Weigh maybe the whole little package weighs maybe a pound.
Well, the whole container, you mean? Yeah, with them in
like,
it.
Here you are.
And with food and water in it. It still doesn't weigh more than a pound.
Gosh, it's just, what he's not saying is the water thing is so tiny. And the food, oh my gosh, they just, there's 4 of them the size of bumblebees.
Yeah, they really are.
They weigh nothing, and they're so fragile, you can tell. So if
you would like to know more about button quail, do send me an email, send me a message, hit me up, direct messenger. We're on, of course, Instagram, Go Some Bears. We are on Facebook, Go Some Bears. What?
No, nothing. I'm just mumbling.
Okay, that's you lie back, Grandpa. You just lie still. We've got all those things, and please remember, if you'd like to help us out, we've always got our Patreon, Go Some Bears, but also a review on iTunes is worth its weight in gold.
We're very grateful.
We are very grateful.
We have good feedback, I think.
We've had great feedback. Yeah, we really do. So please feel free, send us do us up a review, send us an email, reach out. We'd love to have your stories, and we would love to hopefully one day take our little tiny trailer and come to where you are and talk to you about the ghosts around your house and your neighborhood.
I think I'm going to go do a 5-minute mile in my head. Have to make a joke of something.
I think you're going to do a 5-minute crawl to the bed, more like.
You laugh, but I was crawling on the floor the other day. That was not nice.
I know you were. It'll all be all right. Hopefully next time you hear from us in a couple of weeks, things will be on the upswing rather than the hospital ward. And we will for sure give you an update on our little button quail
friends.
In
the hospital ward, there could be ghosts.
Well, there probably would be, but because of the COVID protocols, I won't be able to come see you. So
that's all right. I'll just we can do telephone stuff.
We can use Zoom and do a podcast via Zoom.
Yeah, how weird.
That'd be
well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you have a wonderful day, week, whatever you're doing.
Evening,
and
night, graveyard. I have no idea.
Graveyard shift, drive.
Could be anything.
But please remember us when you're thinking about podcasts and ghost stories, that we're the only podcast who does the actual ghost story
With the actual history.
in the actual place. And hopefully one day soon.
That place will be with you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, bye.